Week 2, 3 runs, 24.5k. Thought it'd be easy until I did the last one. This week's schedule is a 7.5km easy run, 11km hilly progressive long run, and then over and unders for 6km, giving a total weekly distance of 24.5km. After messing up the timings for the morning run in last week's training, for this week I decided to switch my runs from morning to evening. I do enjoy running in the morning, but I find it easy to go to the gym in the morning and then do the run in the evening, rather than the other way around. By the time I get back home, I'm usually really tired, and I find it much easier to go on a run when I'm tired than I do going to the gym. I also just prefer it. Going to the gym and lifting weights in the morning wakes me up ready for the day. Running in the evening helps me unwind and gets me more into that meditative state. The only annoying thing about running in the evening at the minute is the lack of light. I'm currently having to do a lot of repetitive loops, which for whatever reason I find harder than just running in a straight line back and forth. The first scheduled run of the week was a 7.5km easy run, no faster than 5:45 per kilometre. In the first warm-up of the week, I focused heavily on hips and glutes as my hips were feeling super tight. I did a lot of lunges and hip flexor work to make sure I was ready for the run ahead. I also used the sofa to do some step-ups, which helped to warm up my knees. After getting the high-vis straps around my calves to secure my look as a running traffic cone, classical music playlist was selected and I was off on my way. My biggest challenge on this run was sticking to the 5:45 time. Honestly, most of the time I just want to go out, get the distance done as short amount of time as possible so I can get back, eat and sleep. I really struggle with the steady pace runs. There is a cool feature on Runner where you can have a commentary that tells you whether you're going a little bit too fast or a little bit too slow and to adjust your pace accordingly, but I turned it off. When I'm doing these types of runs, I just want to run at a pace I feel comfortable with and get into a little bit of a flow state, which is very difficult to do if you've got that constant interruption in your ear saying slow down or speed up. I can definitely see its use though for different types of runs, like tempo runs for example. This run felt a lot easier than the first one of last week. And because it was in the evening, I could actually do the full distance rather than having to cut it short. I ended up doing the 7.5k at an average pace of 5:19 per kilometre. Whilst I did go a little bit faster than the proposed timings, I stayed within heart rate zones 2 and 3, so at least there's that. I then treated myself to some frozen veg, my evening meal alongside a protein shake. I've actually took a little bit of a step back at the gym this week because I'm very aware that I keep doing a lot of back mobility to try and help my lower back pain, but in doing so, I am potentially making it worse. Last weekend, I did a big back mobility session doing all sorts of twists and extensions, and I woke up on the Sunday with really bad sciatic pain, so I think I might have irritated the nerve a little bit. However, I had to do a little bit of calisthenics and pull-ups as I didn't get them in last week, and I don't want to lose my strength in these areas. The next run of the week was an 11km hilly progressive long run. It wasn't as straightforward as just running 11km. Instead, it was split up into laps of 2km with various different paces, with a 1km at the end to get it to the full 11km. This was the longest run of the plan so far, so I did spend a little bit more time on the warm-up. I did also feel slightly sore from the run the day before, so I used the initial 2k warm-up to get into the flow of the run a little bit. 10km is definitely my sweet spot when it comes to running. 5km feels a little bit too short, and it also takes a little bit of time to get the joints warmed up. Once I get between that 7 and 10km, I always feel fully warmed up and enter that euphoric meditative state and feel a much greater sense of accomplishment after a 10k than I do a 5k. I'm also much better at pacing a 10k because it's essentially running for an hour. I set off at a nice steady pace that I'm comfortable with, knowing that I can change my pace at any point throughout the run. I don't feel like I have the same luxury with 5k runs. Even when I say to myself, I'll just take this one nice and steady, I'm feeling a bit tired, always ends up being a race against the clock. However, 5km is great for getting my heart rate into zones 4 and 5 training, but just doesn't feel as satisfying. With this run, I did a similar route to the week before, and I was so tempted to blast through the dark patch and conquer the goblins, but in the end, I just didn't think it was worth it. I wouldn't have forgiven myself if I tripped over a pothole or something and injured myself with 6 weeks to go. I finished the run in just over an hour at an average pace of 5:36 per kilometre. Whilst I didn't take any notice to the target splits on the run, it was interesting to see the breakdown in how far under or over the target I was in each kilometre. To be honest, looking at it, I kept a pretty consistent pace throughout, which is good to see. I kept my heart rate within zones 1 to 3 with an average heart rate of 139, and I felt pretty comfortable at this pace. I felt minimal knee pain, which is good. However, I did start to feel a little bit of tension in my quads after around 8km, which I think is due to the fact this was one of my longest runs in a while, so it is something to build on in the coming weeks. Again, I rounded off my evening with frozen veg with my dinner and a protein shake to cap it off. Final run of the week was over and unders for 6km. What does that mean? We started with 1km at a conversational pace to get warmed up, then it was 1km at 5:05, followed by 1km at 4:45 in a little bit of a circuit repeated twice. Then once those were done, a 90-second walking rest before a 1km cool down at conversational pace, equaling 6km in total. I did the usual warm-up to get everything fired up. Super random, but I fancied a little bit of the MJ Bad album on this one, particularly Liberian Girl, which I find to just be such a relaxing relaxing song. Seeing as this was a tempo run, I felt I should probably stick to the tempos for this one. So I did also have the voice instructions turned on within the runner app, speaking in my ear, letting me know when speed up, speed down, and when I was on pace, which was actually really useful for this run. This run was tough. This was the first time I'd ever tried to deliberately switch up the tempo whilst on a run, and it was hard, not gonna lie. What made it particularly difficult is the route that I normally do starts downhill, then it goes uphill, and then it goes back downhill, and I somehow managed to time it so that the warm-ups and cool-downs were going downhill, and the pacey kilometres were uphill, which added even more difficulty to it. Whilst I did enjoy this run, I can definitely see the benefit from a training point of view. I have to say, I do prefer the longer runs at a steady pace. I didn't feel like I could fully relax in this as I was trying to navigate the runner app telling me to speed up or slow down, which lap I was on, alongside Michael Jackson talking about Liberian women all at the same time. Not the most relaxing combo in the world. But it was fun to do, and it was something a little bit different rather than just doing the same old route. This had a little bit of spice to it, which is good. It's definitely something to do as well when you're strapped for time. I've said before that my limiting factor is my leg and joint strength, but I feel like I only really get into that type of fatigue training around 8 to 9 kilometres. Whereas with this run, I started to feel fatigue after the first 4 to 5 kilometres, so it'll be a great one for leg conditioning ahead of longer steady state runs. It also didn't help that I messed up this run at the end. It was meant to be a 9-second rest period where you walked it off after the pacier runs, but I couldn't hear what was being said on the app, so I ended up just running this period 2 and then running the additional 1k after that, which meant I ended up doing slightly above the 6 kilometres and did 6.3 kilometres with an average pace of 5:05. Whilst I crept slightly into zones 4 and 5 on this run, I was surprised to see my average heart rate wasn't that much higher than my normal steady state runs, which is a promising sign. And there we have it, week 2 complete. Really enjoyable. Actually, it was a really good combination of familiarity with a little bit of variety in there also. I feel like I'm building a good foundation to go from. If you have questions about any part of the training, please leave them in the comment section. And please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss week 3, which introduces some serious pace into the sessions. See you then.